Hello there everyone, welcome back to another video about a children's trading card game. This is the fifth of my in-depth guides to a certain leader in the OP02 format. If you are seeing this on Patreon, thank you so much for your support, I really do appreciate it, and I hope you are enjoying these guides. If you're seeing this on YouTube, my patrons have had this for probably months at the time you're seeing this, and they will have had it much earlier in the tournament season when they will be able to make good use of it. Some of my patrons have used my guides to get into top 8 at events. So I hope that that's enough of a sales pitch for you. That'll do with the shilling. But just to go over, if you have not seen the guides that should be up on the channel, I'll be uploading them in order when they go over to YouTube, but also they're on Patreon in this order. At the moment, there is my Kinemon guide, my Whitebeard guide, my Zoro guide, and my Ivankov guide, but Zoro and Ivankov came out in the opposite order. Those are all up as of the time of recording, so if you have not seen those, please do check them out. I do think they are very, very good, and I hope that they will be useful to you. Let's go ahead and jump into this guide, though, and I'm going to be talking about Smoker. Personally, this is one of my favorite leaders in the set, mainly because black is my favorite color in the game, and whilst I do think the deck is really, really cool, it definitely does have its challenges, but it can be successful. It won the first European online regionals, so of course, you know, the deck, it's not that it doesn't have a high power level, it's not that it can't compete, but it does have some shortcomings, which we will discuss as we move through this video. So, firstly, obviously, want to be asking the question, why Smoker? Well, the number one reason, I think, is you get to use the Admirals, right? Like, I feel like that's everyone's reason why the Admirals are just really cool, right? You're playing these, like, your deck is just full of these top-tier powerhouse characters who have just got some crazy cool feats in the manga, and you just want to use them, and, you know, they look cool. So, yeah, that's a pretty big one. Another really big one is you just like absolutely ruining green players. Whilst obviously green can beat black, I really do think that black is quite heavily favored into the matchup, and in Smoker to a reasonable extent. Obviously in Zephyr it's a completely different, but we're talking about Smoker today. And honestly, I do think the matchup is very, very much black favored. So if you're going into a regionals and you are expecting it to just be flooded with green, black may be a very solid anti-meta pick. You'd like having one of the best defensive cards in the game. I gotta say, guys, Shockwave, truly a top-tier defensive card. Really, really powerful. And of course, the big bad 10-drop Kuzan, public enemy number 1, making everyone start shitting themselves the second it hits the board. It's a very, very cool power swing, and it's really fun to play. So let's talk about the strengths. As I said, the deck's power level is high, and there's no doubt about that, right? If you sit through and you read what these Admirals do, right, like, the worst is Kuzan, and he still fundamentally draws you a card and puts online basically your entire deck. In fact, I'll talk about the Admirals more, and I'll talk about the power cards when I talk about the key cards, because, spoiler, it's basically all the power cards. But I think it's sufficient to say here that the cards are good. The cards are very, very good. The issues of the deck are certainly not in terms of its power level. Your removal is pretty much the best in the game. I don't think really any color can hope to compete. Maybe purple. Obviously, you know, 10-cost Kaido wiping a board is quite good. 9-cost Kaido popping a 5-cost is quite good. Getting rushed, don't get me wrong, these are very, very powerful. But if you look at the consistency, the ability to just nuke stuff, black, it doesn't really get much better than black. You have a lot of good defensive strength. You've got really nice 2k counters that you want to be playing. Your 2k counters are usually useful outside of their, like, 2k-ness, right? Like, basically every 2k counter you're playing because, like, oh, well, actually, I would like to make use of this as well. And that's obviously a very, very good position to be in. You're not just playing 2ks for the sake of having 2ks. Gives you a lot more versatility. And, of course, as I said, you do have probably the best defensive event in the game. It's up there with, like, Punk Gibson. Like, it's one of those two and Radical Beam. Like, it's one of those three that's... Oh, I guess on Hell's Judgment. It's one of those four. It's one of those four. It's really up there. Anyway, as I said before, you've got a very, very good green matchup, and all matchups are winnable. Fundamentally, you don't have any matchup where you just sit there and you cry. You have some which are challenging, but you're never getting, you know, there is no element of, like, oh, 90-10, 80-20. Like, no. Your worst matchup is probably 65-35, 60-40 against you. Something like that, and that really kind of come down to player skill that can very much even that out. And then you factor in power draw, card draw, and there's a bit more swingy there, but it's not too bad. Weaknesses, though. Inconsistent beyond belief. And this is the biggest issue with black. You have no searches. If you look at every top tier deck in the game right now, certainly the ones I rank in S tier, they're all playing not even 4, they're playing 8 searches. which search top 5. That's usually a pretty good indication that your deck is going to be top tier, is if you are doing these big searches through huge swathes of your deck constantly, right? Black has no searches, like, at all. Like, it's not like, oh, well, they've got it. No. Like, your best consistency is a 1-cost event that says draw a card, and your 4-cost Kuzan that also draws you a card. And when that's your best consistency, you know there's going to be an issue. And this is why I said Black's issue isn't its power level, but it's actually seeing the power cards on a consistent basis. If Black had a buggy, or 2, ideally 2, I think Black would be doing absolute bits in the format just because it would have that consistency. It would be able to develop a board whilst plussing. It would be able to contest early game decks, and that's its really big issue right now. It can be very awkward to play in the first few turns of the game. Your curve is kind of set out for you, and if you go first, you're set back a turn. So there's these issues with Black's early game where, yes, once you actually do hit your power turns, you know, your 6, your 8, and your 10, and you're doing huge removals, and you're establishing these beat sticks that are really, really scary, and you're able to control your opponent's board, slap down your 10-cost Kuzan, the game is swung from that point. It can just be the case that your opponent is able to rush you down, develop too much of a board, and you can't really deal with it. It's a bit of an awkward deck to play in the first few turns. It's very weak going first. Like, fundamentally, Smoker, you don't have ramp like Zephyr does, where you can kind of compensate for going first. Going first is just strictly worse. You always want to go second. And you can just get abused by Zoro, fundamentally. You'll just they turn cards sideways, and Red Luffy, to an extent as well. They just turn cards sideways, and not much you can do. That is one of the big issues in playing this deck, though, of course, Red Zoro does not seem to be as popular as I might expect for how good the deck is. Okay, so let's look at the key cards. And it's just the Admirals and Impact Wave, to be honest. I could have put Garp on here, but, I mean, really, these are the key cards. So let's talk about each one. Bottom left here, we got Kuzan. On play, draw a card. When attacking, give one of your opponent's characters -4 to their cost during this turn. This means that your leader effect is basically always going to be online. Your leader effect plus a Kuzan plus a Sakazuki means you're removing anything in the game, including an opposing 10-cost Kuzan. It is turning on all sorts of random other effects that require, like, low cost to be present on the board, like your 5-cost Smoker, for example, which I didn't put as a key card, but it is a good card. So yeah, Kuzan, probably the worst of the Admirals, but still pretty good. Sakazuki, on play, trash one, KO 5-cost or less. He's a 6/7, he's huge, he's really annoying to get rid of for your opponent. This combining with the leader effect means you can just nuke any 6-cost for 7 and a card out of your hand, which is pretty good. I mean, even if Sakazuki was a 7/7, to be honest, I'd say it's still pretty worth playing. As a 6/7, he's damn good. I wish he was a 5/7, but hey-ho. Borsalino is the best Admiral, not even close. I can't imagine Borsalino not seeing play at 4 in every single deck with access to Black for the next, like, year. Like, pick up alts of this guy now. I think they're like 20, 30 bucks. Just pick up a playset if you are planning on, if there's even the most niche chance you're ever wanting to max rarity a deck which plays Black, just pick him up now. This card is so cracked. 6k on your opponent's turn, cannot be KO'd by effects. It's just a free block every single turn. It forces your opponent to commit a Don to threaten anything, and it turns your 1Ks into 2Ks in that first attack. And you can just, and even if your opponent rests it or something, that's fine. It's a 6k thing they got to swing into that you played out for 4. It's like you got a vanilla with like a billion different effects. God, this card is amazing. 10-cost Kuzan, I feel like I don't really need to explain, but like, yep, on play, you're just nuking a 5-cost or lower, and then you have this passive buff that's basically going to make all your removal go absolutely sicko mode. And then Impact Wave is crazy. If opponents are not used to Black matchup, they're just going to fold to this because you KO an active 3-cost or less. So the amount of times I've seen people just not swing with the 3-cost or less first, and then they lose the game because they just lost an attacker, and an attack got nullified. Yeah, this card is incredibly, incredibly good. Okay, let's take a look at a deck list now. I think this is a really standard deck list. There's nothing like super crazy here. It's just playing mainly the power cards, right? So we're playing 4 of each power card. And then we're also playing 4 Kobe for some removal here. Of course, with the Smoker leader effect, Kobe can deal with 4-cost or lowers, which is quite nice. I play a couple of the 3-cost Smoker. I think he's really, really nice. He can't be KO'd by effects, and he's very good into that Zoro matchup. I play 3 Helm Eppo just because it's a trigger to play it. That's also very, very good if he reduces cost himself and he's just a free 5k swing. And of course, like, Smoker is a 6k swing. Sengoku, Tsuru, Garp, and Tashigi are all just played because they're 2k counters, basically. Smoker is just really, really good. It's a 5/7. It cannot be KO'd by effects, so it's entirely possible in this deck to just build a board that can't be KO'd by effects. Like, just full of smokers and Borsalinos, and your opponent's just kind of crying. And he's double attack when your opponent has a 0 cost on board, which means against Zoro you can just very randomly threaten lethal when they're just not expecting it. And you can just rip a huge number of cards out of your opponent's hand because they just don't want to take a random double attacker. Like 2 Don, swinging for 9 is usually enough to make your opponent just drop 3 cards, 4 cards, and you're like, yep, that was definitely worth 2 Don. Meteor Volcano, this is really useful for just popping little 1 or 2 cost blockers, because with Smoker Effect, it can deal with 2 costs, so Meteor Volcano is very, very nice, but I didn't really want to be filling my deck with too many bricks. And then Impact Wave, of course, being crazy. So the deck is fairly standard, I think, nothing insane. Okay, let's talk about the matchups now. Zoro, this is your worst matchup. It's disadvantageous, and you really need Borsalino, and you need to go second. If you go first and you don't have Borsalino, I don't know how you're winning this matchup, to be honest with you. Going second is extremely important. This will let you Shockwave on their first attack, which will usually let you KO a unit, because if they go first, they usually play a Nami, or they play a Chopper, or they play a Sunicune or something, right? They're playing something. And then you go second, and you pass. And then they start their turn, and unless they attach a Don to Zoro, and then attach another Don to Sunicune or something, and then they swing, in which case, well, they're only doing 2 attacks turn, they're not establishing a board, you can just block one, take another, it's fine, or you can even just take both. You're kind of fine with that circumstance. If they attack with leader first, then you punish them very heavily. So that's kind of what you need to happen. And then on the next turn, you go, okay, cool, Borsalino. And if that happens, you're in a very, very good position, and you can find yourself winning those matchups. If that doesn't happen, and the extent to which that doesn't happen really can make life very difficult. If you don't see Borsalino, the matchup is very, very difficult. You need Borsalino in the early game to just force Zoro to be swinging 6. And it can, in those first few turns, that can make it relatively Don inefficient. You're developing a board here that can just contest your opponent's field. Don't be afraid to swing with Borsalino, by the way, into clear units. Like, that's fine. Like, if Borsalino is going to take out a unit, it is fine to have him rested. They're probably going to attack into him anyway because he's really annoying. Take advantage of the fact that Smoker will basically always be 7k. That's another thing. Like, 1 Don, Smoker is 7k. You are removing whatever the fuck you throw him into. Send him into a Rush Zoro. It's probably carrying that Zoro, and if it doesn't, you just took 2 cards out of your opponent's hand, so you're happy with that arrangement as well. Clear board before anything else. Once you get that Zoro player's board empty, even if you're at like 1 life, you're fine. The issue is, of course, I don't play a huge number of blockers in this list because of Vista and Robin, but like, you can run into issues if they just go, yep, okay, 10 Don swing, 10 Don swing, and if you just don't have blockers, but as long as you've got a single blocker and you're able to block like a 1 turn, it's very difficult for them to come back from that. Control their board, and then you can just like kill them over the course of like a turn or 2. Yeah, just focus on nuking Zoro's board, and then it becomes nowhere near as scary. But it's a disadvantageous matchup. You got to try your best. Okay, Whitebeard. This is kind of a skill difference matchup. Again, you want to be going second, and how you play this does depend on the variant. But in general, you don't want to go face until they're 1 life or less. Build a wide board that threatens game. It's a sort of general advice into Whitebeard. If they are arrested units, attack them. A lot of the time, those arrested units are going to be 6k, in which case they're the same as Whitebeard, and they're just going to be kind of the same. Or they're 5k, in which case Whitebeard, you just lost the ability of being 6k, and you can just rip cards out of your opponent's hand, or just clear their board. And Whitebeard really needs a board. On his own, he's not that threatening. Sakazuki will kill pretty much any attacker. Kuzan 4 is really important into dealing with an on-curve 9-cost Whitebeard. Really, really, really important. When they do this, if you've got that Kuzan on board, you can just swing and then play 10-cost Kuzan or play Sakazuki. That can be enough to swing the game on its own. You don't even need to hit. It doesn't matter. The point is that you are removing that threat. You're removing this free attacker, and they kind of just waste their turn doing nothing. Do not let them kill 4-cost Kuzan if you can avoid it. Obviously, if they pistol it, so try not to play it too early. Be wary of Ace as well. Like, Ace will just randomly lethal you. It'll reduce your powers. Suddenly you're relying on like your blockers doing certain things, and they don't. So just be wary of that as well. Overall, though, make sure you go second. As I say, like, it's really, really imperative you go second. Obviously, like, Whitebeard likes going first, so that probably will happen. And you should be fine. It's a skill difference. Just, draw better cards. Kinemon, I think this is pretty advantageous. You want to be finding your Borsalinos, your Kuzans, and your Impact Waves. It's okay if Borsalino gets rested. He's still 6k. It's fine. Focus on building a wide board and apply pressure. Green does not have much counter power. Green relies on its blockers. Green relies on its like threatening units. Lethal is actually relatively straightforward into Kinemon. Your 7k free on leader is going to be really, really nice. Once 10-cost Kuzan hits the board, it's game over. Shockwave gets you free wins from bad players if they're playing a Kiku before attacking, but really, the second this 10-cost Kuzan hits the board, nothing they do is scary. You have free removal for basically everything. You're just killing their stuff left, right, and center. They'll never be able to stick a board. Kinemon without a board is not scary. It's one attack a turn. You can deal with one attack a turn. Overall, definitely an advantageous matchup for Smoker. Next, we have got Ivankov. So, again, here you want to be mulliganing for basically all your power cards. And you want to be going second, because Ivankov playing an ideal curve basically means until turn 5, they're only attacking with leader. Maybe on turn 4, they have a 7k swing as well. That's it. Otherwise, it's just 5, 5, 5. Wow, how scary. And if they don't have an ideal curve, then well, cool, they don't have an ideal curve. Use this time to build like your nice wide board, pressure them. Shockwave KOs a Doffy blocker, so this is just really, really free, right? Like, on your turn 3, going second, you can play down a 4 cost and then just pass, and your opponent will be going into their turn 5, they're going to play their Eva, they're going to use their Eva, they're going to play out a Luffy, and then they're just going to swing. And you're going to go, yep, cool, Shockwave, kill your blocker. And you always have an out to that Luffy, because Sakazuki plus leader effect will KO Luffy. And hey, what a coincidence, you're always going to have the Don available for that right after. So you're always fine as long as you see your power cards into this matchup. It's really not very stressful at all. Kuzan 4 lets you deal with the Mihawks as well, and they have no out to tank cost Kuzan. So basically, as long as you're seeing your power cards, this is a really free matchup. But if you're not seeing your power cards, then things get very, very sticky and deteriorate very, very quickly. So again, as usual, Black has the tools, it just needs to draw them. Kaido. Again, I think this is advantageous as well. I think you want to be finding your Sakazukis, your Bossoninas, and your Impact Waves. You want to go second as well. As usual, you just always want to go second. Keep pressuring the leader, and you build a board to keep the pressure up. Make sure to play cards first, so you don't get caught out by a surprise trigger Don -1. Usually, against any other leader, it's fine at the start of turn, without even thinking, just to turn your leader sideways and go 5 in the early stages of the game. Like, usually that's just fine. Obviously, it depends on the situation, but you know what I'm saying. However, against Kaido, you don't want to do that, because if they trigger a Hell Judgment and they just remove one of your Dons at a critical juncture, for example, on turn 2 or turn 5, on one of those 2 turns, if they do that, even turn 3, if you're planning on playing a Sakazuki, the only turn where it's fine is 1 and 4. And 1, it's never going to happen because you can't attack. So on turn 4 is the only time it's okay to just swing. Any other turn, if they hit that Don -1, your curve is completely fucked. It's completely thrown off. At least if you've played your card first, it feels bad, but it doesn't feel that bad. So you got to be really wary about that. You got to play around Hell's Judgment. 8k or 5k. Those are your magic numbers. Because 8k means that, yep, even if they Hell's Judgment you, then they've got to pitch another card from hand for that attack. And if it's 5k, well, whatever, fine. You should be removing blockers really easily with a combination of your Sakazukis and your Impact Waves, and Borsellino being such high value, constantly allowing you to defend. You should be taking this matchup relatively easily. Just be wary of being set back a turn by Magellan and like killing Magellan early or something. Like, but really, once you have your 10 cost Kuzan established, like you're not threatened. You can usually control Kaido relatively easily. Yes, they can always 10 cost Kaido you, but by the time they looking in a situation to 10 cost Kaido you should have them down to 1 or 0. And as long as you are not literally on like 1 life with no board at the start of their turn, and they can just go like 12 and like 15 and 12 or something, you're fine. Overall, I think this is a relatively straightforward matchup for Black. Okay, the mirror. Go second. See better cards. It's complete dumb luck. Play your best, but you really can't beat more power cards. It's just how the matchup goes. So see ya. Impact Wave does absolutely fuck all in this matchup most of the time, because usually you're not really relying on 3 cost or lowers, it's 4 costs. So yeah, obviously be wary of the trigger effect. It's a thing to keep in mind, but yeah, just see better cards. Try to avoid playing down 1 cost, just because then you're kind of giving your opponent like a free smoker effect in the early game. And yeah, just generally like try to maintain your board and force your opponent to use their hand removal rather than just attacks, because that really negs them from hand. And then like go into the late game, probably fine. You can build for this if you think it's going to be a real thing by playing cards like Ice Age and stuff like that. But like, yeah, overall, this matchup is just who sees better cards, honestly. Lore. This is slightly disadvantageous in my opinion. Again, you just want to be seeing your power cards and you want to go second. Put out as many power cards as you can and deal with the 5 cost laws using Sakazuki and 10 cost Kuzan. This is imperative. Every turn you let those laws hang around is a turn your opponent is winning. Be wary of Restand Law. The game can literally just randomly end because of Restand Law. Play around Jet Pistol. Dear God, play around Jet Pistol. Shockwave is very strong if they don't play around it. And usually in law, it's difficult to play around it because you're swarming the board with a lot of cheap dudes. The biggest thing is if they do not attack with their Zoros first and you just pop them, that is a huge a huge swing. If your opponent law is not thinking ahead properly and they do not properly allocate their dons, it's possible you can screw them out of being able to use their leader effect because they commit too much don to a particular attack, and you pop one of their guys and now they don't have enough don to actually play out a board. So there's ways where Impact Wave really does screw them over. Law doesn't usually have much defense from hand, so if you just nuke the blockers, which it's not that hard, like the big ones is the 5-cost laws, because at that point, you're dealing with the chump blockers very, very, very easily. You can take the win, but it can be uphill depending on like the matchup, and it is very draw dependent. Ultimately, you have to see the cards in order to play the cards, so that is the only downside. You got to draw them. And finally, we have got Zephyr. So I'd say this is slightly disadvantageous. You want to be going second, but Zephyr can ramp, so that doesn't always save you. Just apply pressure. They only have 4 life. Keep turning your card sideways. Go face. They're inconsistent, and they have to hard draw the 10-cost Kuzan, but so are you. Though you can take a little more damage, so you do get to dig a little bit deeper because you're at 5 life. Play around the 2k counters. Always swing 7. That's why your leader effect is really, really nice into this matchup. If they survive until the 10-cost Kuzan turn, you will lose your board, and you will not be able to break back through, because Zephyr plays more blockers than Smoker usually does, and it's really, really rough at that point. So, yeah, because the swing is, Zephyr is going to be removing a card every single turn. Every single turn, they're killing an 8-cost or lower for free once that 10-cost Kuzan is established, and the Kuzan turn is a huge swing turn, because they're probably going to KO one of your 5-cost or lowers, and then they're going to KO like your Sakazuki or something. So it's really, really rough. If you can play your cards that can't be destroyed, like Smokers, obviously, and Borsalinos, that's obviously going to be way better. Those are going to help you swing the matchup. But fundamentally, you just have to draw better. And there we go. That is it for this in-depth guide to Smoker. I hope you guys found this video useful. If you did, on Patreon, please let me know in the comments or like the video. I hope you guys are enjoying these guides. And if you're seeing this on YouTube, please do subscribe to the channel for more One Piece card game competitive content. And of course, check out the Patreon linked in the description, where you can find a whole wealth of these that'll have been uploaded by the time you're seeing this, probably moving into the OP03 format, or just a full repository for OP02, with OP03 coming very, very soon. By the time you are seeing this. That's it for this video. Thank you so much for watching. I really do hope you enjoyed it. Hope you found it useful. Let me know if you did in the comment section down below. And of course, if you do go on to do well with Smoker, I would love to hear. And I hope to see you guys in the next video. Cheers.